Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the May 23rd meeting of the Zoning Hearing Board of Lower Providence Township. If you'll stand with us and do the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In our secretary's absence, I will take the roll. Patricia Azamora. Here. Kathy Eske. Here. Gail Hager. Here. George Azarowski. Joe Puzzi. Chris Gers. Gertis, sorry. Robert Hart. Here. Keith McLennan.
Here.
And our zoning officer, Mike Rwzinski. Chris, can I ask you to read our opening statement?
Sure. The Zoning Hearing Board will give all interested parties an opportunity to ask questions and testify in connection with the applications being heard tonight. After a witness for the applicant completes testimony, you'll be given an opportunity to ask questions of that witness. In addition, after an applicant has completed its case, you will also be given an opportunity to testify, which will require you to be sworn in as a witness. If you wish to participate in the hearing on an application, you should complete the entry of appearance form, which will be provided to you by the zoning officer. That was introduced as Mike. We ask your cooperation in maintaining silence during the hearings so that both the board and the court reporter can hear the testimony of the witnesses. We also ask that all cell phones be turned off at this time.
Thank you, Chris. Just to review what he said, an applicant will come up and present their application. You're invited to come up and ask questions of the applicant at that time. You'll have a second opportunity to come up and give testimony, which is something that would be that you were either for or against this particular application. Gail, do you want to read the first application for tonight?
Hearing number 1, Z-19-08, ERH Capital Partners, LLC, 290 Upper Indian Head Road, Collegeville, PA, 19426. The applicant proposes to consolidate and develop the properties for one single-family dwelling and requests a special exception under Section 143-145 to permit a home to be built on the combined lots. Alternatively, the applicant requests variances from Sections 143-37A2 as follows. A variance from lot area requirements of 25,000 square feet so as to permit a lot area of approximately 10,800 square feet gross, and a variance from the front yard 50 feet and rear yard 60 feet setback requirements so as to permit a front yard setback of 25 feet and a rear yard setback of 25 feet. The parcel ID of the subject property are 43-00-04480-004, 43-000-0474-001, 43-000-047100-4, and 43-000-04468-00-7. Subject properties are located at 5th Street near the corner of South Barry Avenue, Lower Providence Township, and are in the R2 residential district.
And I see we have Attorney Fury here to represent the applicant. But first I'll ask Mike, do you have anything that you want to present at this time on this application?
No, I could certainly not do justice to Mr. Fury.
Okay, if you will proceed.
Yes, good evening, members of the board. Michael Fury for the applicant ERH Capital Partners, LLC. I have exhibit packets to hand out to the board.
Thank you.
You'll see in the exhibit packet, number one is the application and narrative. This involves 6 tax units, 4 tax parcels, 3 different owners. ERH Capital Partners has agreements with regard to these lots, and they are redacted excerpts of those agreements of sale are attached as Exhibit 2 to the exhibit packet. I would start off by indicating to the board that this is really a classic variance case. You'll see that there's a citation to section 143, 145 of the zoning ordinance. The first sentence there deals with uses. The second sentence deals with undersized lots. And basically, under section 143, 145, you're permitted by special exception to build houses on these lots. Technically, that could be 6 very small houses. Now, there is a doctrine of merger of nonconforming lots. That would apply if the ordinance provide for merger. I don't believe it does. Under the Lochran case, the merger would not apply. Or even if it did apply, that would be 4 houses by special exception, not by right. So that may be determined to be contrary to the public interest, those 4 lots, or 4 houses on 4 lots. So that's not really this application. The request for special exception was to afford the board an alternative path towards approval, but the main focus of this application is first and foremost a variance, and as I stated, a classic variance case. So unlike the ABH case that this board had back in 2017, we are not proceeding primarily for a special exception for the 4 houses. We're building 1 house on these combined lots.
So, Mike, not to interrupt you, but does that mean then in your application where it talks about special exception that you're not pursuing that?
That's just an alternative a form of relief if the board determines it appropriate. I think it's more, the analysis is better to focus on the variance relief.
So you're not withdrawing that request, you're just, in essence, glossing over it and going to the next issues, or are you going to present on 145?
I don't know if I'm glossing over it. The point of the matter is, that would be more if we were going for 4 houses, and we're not, okay, as far as that goes. I wanted to raise the issue of 143, 145, just to point out the fact that what we're requesting is 1 house on these combined lots. And I'd like to point out that without dimensional variances, nothing could be built on these lots. Land is basically sterilized and condemned for all intents and purposes.
So what you're suggesting, though, by raising the issue of the special exception for under 143, 145, is that you might be entitled to receive a dispensation to, in essence, have 4 houses on these lots, but you're not going that far. You're only asking for 1 house on 4 lots.
1 house on 4 lots and based on a variance analysis. Okay?
Correct.
Because and I have these, and I'm sure you're familiar with these cases, Keith, but.
Don't be so sure that I'm familiar with them.
I have citations and copies of the cases for you, but I know you're familiar with the Nowicki and the Rood and the Jacqueline cases, which basically historically indicated that variances must be granted if the effect of the ordinance is that nothing can be built on the lots, and the denial of such variances would be reversible on appeal, with all due respect. So the imposition of the dimensional zoning restrictions on this land, I would argue, is confiscatory, without relief, and it's just dimensional relief, a lesser standard of scrutiny, because single-family homes are permitted by right in the R2 district. I would suggest to you that the variances are appropriate and necessary to use the land for any reasonable use. So you'll see that in the application narrative, we're seeking variances only from the provisions that cannot be met. The lot area, the lot is only so big as combined, and then the front and rear yard setbacks, front and rear yard setbacks result in a negative building envelope. So we will meet the building coverage, we'll meet the impervious coverage. So if you think about it, the ordinance would anticipate that the land would be used in this fashion with this type of construction from a building and impervious coverage standpoint. We're respecting all applicable side yard requirements as well. So I would argue that the hardship is clear. Land subject to this application is undersized. The restrictions impose an unnecessary hardship, not caused by the applicant, and the relief requested is the minimum to afford relief, and the character of the neighborhood is such that they're nice homes on smaller lots, undersized lots. Like I said, Exhibit 2 establishes the applicant's equitable ownership interest, and I'll establish that with Mr. Fazio when he's called as a witness. The parcels are defined on page 1 of Exhibit 3, and I did want to review the deeds with you. The first deed, and I don't know if, do we have the 1923 plan up there, Mike? You know, maybe what would be a good thing is if the board would take a look at tab 4.
Mr. Fury, can I
Yes.
ask you a question?
Sure.
143, 145
Yes.
says that's single and separate ownership. Did
Yes.
you not read further down in that description? These are not single and separate ownerships.
Sorry, let me get to that section. Yeah, the first sentence talks about uses. The second sentence, a nonconforming lot which is of public record in single and separate ownership at the time of the enactment of the zoning ordinance, 1955, may by special exception be used for a permitted use in the district. In order to use it, you have to build on it, and the only thing that's pretty much permitted is a house. So my point is, under that section, is that by special exception, even if merger applies, you could have 4 small houses there, but that's not by right, that's by special exception. So the zoning hearing board may determine that that's contrary to the public interest. We would suggest to you that it's better to have the one house on the combined lots. However, I will about to explain to you as we go through the deeds how these lots were owned in single and separate ownership at that time, as set forth in the deeds. But I'm not sure that I answered your question.
They were owned single and separate before 1955?
Yes,
Is that what you're going to show?
yes.
Because now they're not? Because the most recent is 1962?
Well, actually, now they are. They are owned by 3 different owners.
Right, but
Yes.
after that time. Okay.
No, I'm saying they're owned by 3 different owners. And even if you merge the 2 lots that are owned by one, then you have an intervening lot that's owned by someone else, and then you have 2 more lots owned by the same company. Then you have another intervening lot, and that's what I was just going to explain to you. If you take a look at tab 4 in the AA, and it's very small, but if you look right at the end of Barry Avenue and 5th Street, you'll see lots that start right at the edge of Barry Avenue. It's right at the top of that plan under exhibit number 4. And you'll see lots 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. Those are the lots we're talking about right there, right at the top, double A's. So when you look at those lots, the first 2 lots, really 17 and 18, are lots 100 and 101. So if you go back to the deeds in under tab 3, you'll see that there's the original plan of 1923. There's a deed dated 1974 from Weiss to Price Jeffries. It refers to a 1964 deed, which is copied and inserted right behind the deed. The Tax Claim Bureau deed of Rawway Building Company, well, references Rawway Building Company plan. That was the original owner who laid out these lots in 1923. We trace these deeds back as best we can. Some of the deeds just could not be found beyond that. In lot 99, lot 19, owned by Grace Building Company. By the way, lot 100 and 101, which is the old 17 and 18, that's owned by Price Jeffries. Then there's lot 99, which is lot 19, the one right beside that. That's owned by Grace Building. There's a Tax Claim Bureau deed of 1967. That property had been owned by Samuel Culbert. The deed into Samuel Culbert is also attached, and that's dated 1923, and that's from the original owner of Rawway Building Company. So as of 1955, lots 100 and 101 were at least owned separately from the owner of lot 99. So now we have an intervening lot there. Lot 98, which is the old lot 20, again owned by Grace Building Company. There's a 1965 county deed with a tax sale. Then there's lot 97. We have a Chappelle to Lynch deed. Lot 21. That was dated 1974. The recital in that deed indicates that the grantor in that deed acquired the property by death of her husband in 1938. So that lot was owned separately in 1955. And then we have Lot 115, was the old Lot 22. That's owned by Grace Building Company, and you'll see the deed from 1964. The township owns the next lot, which is 23, or what is currently Lot 96. So if you go back up to Lot 101, the owner of the land adjacent to that lot is Bartholomew, who acquired that property by deed in 1983. I didn't attach that deed because it's not regarding this property, but I have a copy, and I'll surely share it with the solicitor as you wish. But that deed indicates the grantors by the name of Pasquale had acquired the property in 1948. So it was owned in 1955 by someone different than who owned Lot 101 right next door to it. And I'll have Mr. Fazio testify with regard to that. Under Exhibit 5, there's a Board of Assessment Information and Tax Map. Exhibit 6 we attached because it shows an aerial photo, and it shows the character of the neighborhood. It shows, basically, we have very nice houses. I drove through there today on smaller lots, and it's a nice neighborhood, and this house is going to fit in there perfectly. Exhibit 7 shows the site plan with the lot layout and the dimensions. And Exhibit 8 Mr. Fazio put together this conceptual rendering of what the house may look like, and also a conceptual of what the house is going to look like on the lot. He did go around the neighborhood and drop off packets of information to the neighbors, was able to speak to a number of the neighbors, and also received signatures from various owners in the neighborhood, and that's under tab 9, indicating their support of the application for the one house. Mr. Fazio is going to testify with regard to Exhibit 10 and what he did to put that exhibit together, and then we're also going to go through the Section 168 criteria as well. If there's any initial questions from the board, then I'll call Mr. Fazio.
Mike, I don't want to go back and keep being a dead horse on the special exceptions, but I'm just not certain, when you're reading 145.145, are you reading that as where it says may as shall? Or are you making an argument that if those 6 individual plots or 4 individual tax parcels could all be built on today, under the special exception rules, because there's nothing that the board could do? Or are you
No, here's the thing.
stating that the board has, that may means that the board could do it if it was in the
That's
public
right, it is
interest?
special exception. It's not by right. It's not by right. And some ordinances does indicate non-conforming lots can be built on by right. This doesn't say by right. This says by special exception, which is may, surely, and that's within the board's discretion. Now, of course, special exception is a permitted use, and it's not permitted by right, but it's considered to be a permitted use in the district. So, but the point of the matter is, it is a special exception application. So one of the arguments against a hardship is you could develop the property in some other way. Well, first of all, that's not a lock, as you just indicated, because the board may decide not to grant the special exception for the four houses, because the board may determine to be contrary to the public interest. My citation of 143, 145 really was to point out to the board this situation with regard to these 4 houses. It may be approved, and I'm not reading it as shall, only may, and that's important. It's only may. As a result of that, what we're saying is the main thrust of our argument is that the hardship is what the board should look at. And I would indicate to you it's a classic hardship case.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make.
But that brings me back to my original question, which is, are you pursuing a special exception, or you just brought it in for illustration purposes so the board can see that if someone wanted to come in here, they could seek a special exception to put one house on each of these lots?
I'm going to be honest with you. okay? And as
I always
am,
want you to be
but-
honest with you, and I know that you always are.
But to tell you the truth, when we brought the application, I cited that section as an alternative way for the board to grant relief. Then you were kind enough to bring to my attention the ABH developers case.
Right.
And I read it, and I see that the board is not inclined to grant this application on the special exception basis, and I'm perfectly fine with that because we have
Well,
hardship.
you have to try, you got to play to win, right? I mean, you don't know whether the board would have that same perspective because of there's differing facts in this case theoretically.
There is, and that's the reason why I left it in there and did not quite withdraw it, but I also want the board to focus on the hardship analysis rather than in the ABH case where you really focused on the special exception, and that's not the thrust of our case.
Well, the only reason I ask is from a practical perspective, we then have to, in essence, analyze the special exception aspect of the case as opposed to it just being there for illustration purposes.
It's just for really illustration purposes. Based on your ABH decision, it's really for illustration purposes.
Thanks.
I have some questions that perhaps maybe when Mr. Fazio gets up.
Oh, yes.
Having gone down the street tends to end, and then it's gravel into a couple other properties. Is that gravel part of the extended street that's been unpaved, or is that a right-of-way?
I'm going to have Mr. Fazio answer those questions because I don't have the answers to those.
You're reading ahead, Madam Chair.
Well, I'd like to get ahead of the project.
That's okay. Maybe I should call Mr. Fazio then, but I just wanted to see if the board had any other questions for me
Do we?
with regard
Thank
to the
goodness
process.
they don't, so let's get to it.
Not at the moment.
Swear them in, Paula, let's do our thing, let's go.
Bruce, just state your position with ERH Capital.
What, microphone?
Yep.
Oh,
You're probably not old enough to remember Phil Donahue, but that's what you need to do is hold on to that mic and get around the room and tell us what you're gonna tell us. Because otherwise Ian will be mad at us because he won't be able to hear what you have to say. Right, Ian? Got it. Shoot, sorry.
Thank
And
you.
don't
No,
be afraid to hold that to your mouth though, too, if you don't mind.
so Mr. Fazio, state your position with ERH Capital Partners.
I am the managing member for ERH Capital Partners.
And Mr. Fazio, we love the respect, but you don't have to stand if you don't want to.
Wonderful.
Only Mike has to, because you're paying him.
Thank you. Bruce, first of all, everything I stated, is that accurate? Do you wish to correct anything? You surely can.
No, it was very accurate, and I don't want to mention anything about 145.143.
Okay. And then just look at tab 2 on the packet, and these are agreements of sale that outstanding with the ERH Partners has with the owners of the property. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And I see in there, they all refer to each other, so they're tied to each other. In other words, it's conditioned upon you getting all the lots and getting approval for all the lots for the one house. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
All right. Very good. And then, so now, let's go right to your efforts in, well, let's first answer the chair's question with regard to the roadway.
Was the question about as South Barry Ave, the paving stops and the gravel starts?
Yes.
Okay, that is still the South Barry Ave, and it goes about a half a block down to where the 5th Street, Paper Street is.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that answers the question.
At the moment, it does.
Okay,
Thank you.
She'll be paving down to the house, is that correct? Down
Correct, yes.
Paper Street. You're not going to be blocking the street or blocking
No,
the paper
no.
street or anything like that? Okay. Very good. Then, so Bruce, you went around the neighborhood and dropped off packets, is that correct?
Yes, I did, this past
Okay.
Saturday.
And then you took a look at the dimensions on the lot, and you took a look at the houses that are appropriate. But let's indicate you've been in the building trades for a number of years?
Over 30 years.
Okay. And you built single-family homes?
Very many.
Okay. As far as this single-family home that you show under tab 8, is this similar to what you would be building here?
It is, yes.
Okay. And does the second page of 8 accurately reflect what the house would look like on that lot?
Yes, it's actually to scale. It's an overview shot, a bird's eye view, and that's exactly what our intent is, to build that house on that lot, and that's how it would look with the driveway connecting to South Barry Avenue.
Now, you've put these lots together. It's bordered by a piece, a 20-foot piece owned by the township. That's the one, that's on the one side.
Correct.
And then you have the street in front of the lot. The lots are only about 90 feet deep, right?
Correct, yes.
And so you got a negative building envelope from the front to the rear setback. Is that
Correct.
correct?
The front yard, 50 feet, the rear yard, I believe, was 60 feet, so it leaves a negative 10-foot building envelope.
Yeah, maybe
as the
negative 20 feet, right? or
Yeah,
something.
that's right.
10 to
negative
20.
right.
Okay, and then up on the other side, there's other lots, as shown on tab 4. There's other lots there on the other side of numbers 17 and 16, 15. Those lots are owned by a gentleman by the name of Bartholomew.
George Bartholomew.
Yes, did you reach out to Mr. Bartholomew at any time in the past?
I have actually been trying to buy those lots from Mr. Bartholomew for in excess of 10 years. Just recently, I actually even had one of my realtors, Patty Tabor, approach his wife. I believe they're good friends, to try to see if he was interested in selling the lots, and the simple answer was no.
So therefore, the lots, and then the lots behind this property, they're all developed with houses. Is that
They
correct?
are, that would be the rear yards of Regency Drive.
So this approximately 10,800 square feet is sitting there, bordered by township property, the road, developed lots in the back, and Mr. Bartholomew's property, and he doesn't want to sell.
That is correct,
Okay.
yes.
So,
Just a brief interruption. I just want to confirm, it's 15 and 16 are Mr. Bartholomew's?
yeah, I think he owns a couple more than that.
Yeah, all the way
But,
down. all the
but
way-
anyway, he does have 16, which blocks the
He
access
has-
from
he
that
has-
side.
I believe he has, you know what, I have the deed, and I can find it. Hang on a second, Bruce, let me get the-
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Bartholomew.
Yeah, he owns all the way down to Sunnyside Avenue. All those lots, all the
I
way
thought
down.
maybe
to
Mr. Bartholomew was here for some reason, but he's not here yet.
Only his phantom is here, it sounds like.
Yeah, I have that deed, and I can surely show it with your solicitor, but it looks like he's lots 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10.
And then he owns those other ones in the front there.
Oh, okay. So,
Okay,
So-
that's great. So 16 is the one that does block the one side and the township lot on the other
Township
side.
has
is
the other
correct.
lot,
Okay.
yeah.
So orient me, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
wrong way. So you're saying Bartholomew's here?
Bartholomew is right here at 16, straight up, right there.
Over.
That's
Here,
16.
look.
That
Right,
was
to the right.
Bartholomew,
All the way down to Sunnyside.
Okay, and then we are right here, right at the edge of the...
Mike, you needed some elevator shoes, sorry to make that joke, but there's a laser pointer there, so let's do your thing.
All right. This is, I can get closer, different pair of glasses. Okay, this is Bartholomew here. These are our lots here. And here's the township piece, 20 feet,
What's the township piece?
20 feet wide, so like township since 1960, this is 1960s.
Patrick Duffy's in the back room, what is it used for, do we know?
Growing trees.
We don't know, right? It's just been that way forever.
Actually, I do know the background. I do know the background of the history, if it's of interest to the board.
I'm interested.
Back in the 60s, when the Tax Claim Bureau was created, they actually, the first thing they did was they offered the property that was not...
Mike, closer, I'm
Oh.
sorry.
The property that was not sold at tax sale, the county actually let the borough, or the township have the first access. If they wanted the property, they could have it.
Did you approach the township about that parcel?
I talked with my attorney about it, and there was not much response.
Huh.
Not me, that would be somebody else.
It was, yes, it was an attorney from my fund.
So,
And I did want to tell you, you know, it's kind of interesting, when you look at the tax map on that, it looks like it's a 40-foot wide lot. It looks like it's lot 96. But we were able to track it down, and we found that other deed. And it's now, even though you can't, when you click on the map, it doesn't show up, but it's now Unit 115. The 20 feet of that was Unit 115, and the other 20 feet's owned by the township.
and it's only one lot then that's the township's, which is right there?
20-foot, number 23, I think.
23.
And then next to 23 is what?
More lots owned by similar owners like Grace Building and Jeffries and
Really?
Lawrence, yeah.
Similar to these people here. So, Mr. Fazio, what's the story behind those? Why are all these owned by these entities?
Oh, movie lots?
The movie lots are just owned by separate entities that.
I understand
purchased them at
that, but it
different
seems
points
like
in
it's
time.
similar entities. Is there a reason why there? you
I
said
think these
Grace
companies
Building?
bought up movie lots.
I'm sorry?
I think these companies would buy up movie lots back in bygone years.
As far as I know, yes, a lot of them have been purchased back in the 70s and 60s.
They bought them thinking they could combine them all and develop them. That was the premise. That's why so many developers and builders bought all those movie lots, because it has happened in other municipalities, so that's the reason.
Well, let's back up then. You say that you approached the township about number 23. I suspect the township probably would want to unload that. And then you have other similar owners after lot 23, similar owners to the ones that are selling you these lots, correct?
I don't know exactly, but yes,
Okay.
I believe so.
So there's an opportunity there for somebody to buy up some of those, it sounds like, because I'm sure.
I have those units under agreement also.
Aha. But 23 is sort of the blocking lot, it
That is
sounds
correct.
like.
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, we originally were going to apply with regard to a development of the street. And then, Bruce, just so you know, that we had originally actually filed an application for that purpose and withdrew that application without prejudice because Bruce was determining that the numbers were not working for him. Is that correct?
That is correct.
To
yes.
develop those pieces.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've been working on it for about 5 or 6 months now, and it turned out that the numbers just, they didn't work financially.
And
So
I
we-
would, yeah, okay, sorry. And then I would also suggest to you, Keith, that under the Jacqueline case and the Rudd case, which I can surely provide to you, all this discussion about buying up additional land or using additional land, I don't think that there's a case law that would support a requirement. In fact, there's some case law that would indicate that that should not be one of the criteria to determine whether you can purchase different land or buy up different land. I did see it, though, that it became an issue in the ABH, and that's why we brought it up tonight, as we really want to show you that this 10,800 square feet is basically landlocked and therefore can't be built upon. And so we're focusing on this 10,800 square feet.
Right, just as the issue of buying up adjoining lots to make a larger building envelope or lot for purposes of a house, just as that's not a criteria, it's similar to when neighbors say we don't have any objection. That's not a criteria either. The
Right.
issue
Yeah,
is what efforts has the applicant undertaken to try and ameliorate the issue or the problem. That's all that's
Yeah,
about. That's all.
And that's right. But I don't think the board can deny the variances just because he either doesn't or
We
cannot
would never do
purchase.
that.
Okay. You came close to it in ABH, but okay. Very good. I understand.
I'm going to interrupt just one more
Yeah.
time, real briefly.
Sure.
These are all identical lots, they're all 20 by 90?
Yes. Well, yeah, if you merge, a couple of them are 40 by 90, but yeah, they're.
Correct,
yeah,
okay.
they're
Because the tax parcels
real
were
close.
combined
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Is that correct, Bruce?
That is correct,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. So, Bruce, you're going back to the canvassing the neighborhood. You're able to talk to a number of the neighbors and also fortunate enough to get some sign-offs here, and that's on number 9. Can you just explain to the board what you did in order to canvass the neighborhood with regard to this?
Yes, I actually got a list from Mike, I'm sorry, I don't know how to. Brzezinski, of the people that were going to be notified of the variance. And I also went past that. I actually had gone to a bunch of people on 3rd Street also that weren't on the list, but they're close enough. And I handed out a packet of information basically describing what we were going to do as far as combining the 6 lots into one building lot. I showed them a picture of the house that we're going to build, that we're proposing to build, and then the same overview shot, the bird's eye view shot. And when I would meet with them, I'd talk to them and ask if they had any questions or concerns. And I spent quite a bit of time with a bunch of people. And I think I spoke with 19 or 20 people, and 15 of the people that I talked with actually support the application. They did sign it with their name, address on the sheet that's, I think it's
Did-
tab
Nine.
may I-
nine. Tab 9.
I asked, did you go to any of the houses on Regency Circle that seem to back up to this property?
Yes, every one of them.
But you don't have any signatures from any of those people?
No, I have, there's, Mr. Chris Kohar, I believe it is, 141 Regency Drive.
You'll have a chance, you'll have a
Audience,
chance.
you need to contain yourselves. You'll have more than enough opportunity to speak.
Actually, I do believe that's correct. I don't think that 141 backs up to it. I believe it's across the street. I did
But-
speak with a few people that actually back up to the woods there, and I did speak with them about their concerns, and I thought I made progress, but the problem, I guess, that they have is that the woods is higher than their backyard, so water is coming off the woods into their backyards. And I was explaining that if we develop this lot, we have to catch that water, and we can't let it go back to their yard. So it's actually going to help take care of any water issues and problems that can occur back there right now.
Did you speak specifically to the house that's most directly behind yours?
I
In the
believe-
picture, it has two cars.
You have that picture, Mike, on your wonderful world of computing?
I believe that, I'm pretty sure those people were, the next door neighbor told me they weren't home. I just left the packet at their front door. I spoke to if you look at the picture, the bird's eye view.
Right, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, okay, so the one with the two cars, they were not home. I left the packet at their front door. The White House above that.
Right.
I did speak with him, and the White House above that one, also spoke with that gentleman.
And they chose not to sign anything for you?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Can you tell me what it is, that house with the two cars, what's the little
Mike?
disc
Which one?
behind it? Is that a shed, or what is that? Do you know, by chance?
In the back corner of that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a shed. There's actually two sheds back there. You can only see a very small
okay,
part
I
of the
see
other
it.
one. Yes, there's
Very
two
good.
sheds back there.
Thank you.
Sure.
Actually, that's a good picture, Mike. You can leave that.
Okay. Mike?
Oh, okay, very well. And then, Bruce, let's then turn to tab 10 then, and review that exhibit with the board and how you generated that information and make up that exhibit.
Sure, absolutely. I actually have a larger copy if I could hand out to the board. It's a lot easier to read.
Please do.
I don't take offense to that.
Easier for me to read.
Thank you for that.
Okay, so the idea here was to kind of make a little diagram of all the movie lots in the area, in this general area right here where all the movie lots were developed or subdivided at some point in time. And the idea was to figure out how many houses were on what size lots. And if you look to the right side of that paper, it kind of gives you a breakdown. And this is all off of tax map and recorder of deeds information, along with driving around the general neighborhood also. So there were 12 houses that were marked in red here that were actually built on undersized lots that received variances previously. That information came from my seller, and just a little background there. For the past, I would say 50 years, they did buy these lots and build houses and sell to people. So I believe that that's the information that he gave me is the thing. They got 12 variances.
Ian? Can you hear him? Yeah. Okay. Just want to make sure that you're being recorded. Your melodic voice has to be heard.
Not a problem. So my understanding of what he was telling me is that they received 12 variances for lots in this area here, whether they either built the houses themselves or they had a builder.
Whose hearsay is
Yeah,
this?
Who is they?
The different owners. Two of them are the Breinig family down in Abington or Jenkintown. So then there's different owners of different companies that have developed houses over the years.
Do you have a time frame for those houses?
I only know that they were active for the past 50 years, so it's, anywhere from the 60s all the way up until now. So.
You don't have any
I
documentation?
don't have any documentation on that.
This is your belief, these the houses marked in red is your understanding or belief were granted variances to develop on undersized lots?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
So then the second one, there's 24 houses that are marked in yellow that were actually built on 40-foot wide lots.
Now, Bruce, let's go back to, I know that the first indication that there are 12 houses with variances, that was based on information from the seller. The rest is all based on what you've developed with your office, is that correct? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so the rest of this information is actually, it's information that we've taken from tax maps, Board of Assessments office, and that sort of thing to actually construct a color-coded diagram. So the 24 houses represents about 16.5% of the houses in this area that were on 40-foot wide lots. 20 of the houses that are marked in orange were on 60-foot wide lots, and that represents about 13.5%. There are 28 houses, and they're marked in green, and they are on 80-foot wide lots. And then there were 57 houses that are also marked in green, and they are more than 80 feet, but less than conforming.
So I presume that you're offering this information to illustrate the nature of the neighborhood, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, but those houses that you've identified here in your little legend on the right-hand side, other than the red ones, you developed yourself, is what Mike had asked you the question, is that a
That's
fair
correct, yeah.
statement?
Yes.
And you base that upon information that you've acquired or assembled as a consequence of researching the various tax maps and...
Tax maps and the Recorder of Deeds office.
And can you tell us the dates when these houses were built?
I did not research that, no.
Because that would have an impact, wouldn't it, if it was done before the zoning code was passed? Maybe it's a question for Mike.
It can, but we're really going to factor number 4 with the variance in that this house in a 10,800 square foot lot will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood.
Well, that's why I asked the question originally, which is you're providing this information to demonstrate that the neighborhood is the neighborhood and it
Right.
wouldn't change the neighborhood, is what
Exactly.
you're saying.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Sorry for the detour.
No, that's fine, yeah, regardless of when it was built, it's the character of the neighborhood.
Well, but there's a certain salient factor or implication by saying these houses are on these undersized lots, which would suggest that if they have an undersized lot, we should have undersized lots too. That's not what you're saying.
No.
It's just the character of the neighborhood.
Got it. Okay, thanks. Helpful, thank you.
Bruce, did you go down?
I did,
those?
yeah.
Okay, very well then.
But I guess in summing it all up, there was a total of 149 houses that we actually did the research on.
So explain to the board basically what this house would consist of and how would you be building this house?
It'll be normal general construction, stick-built. It'll be a 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath colonial, approximately 2,100 square feet, 2-car garage, with 2-car parking on the outside also. Will be hooked up to the public sewer and the public water. And it'll be landscaped nice, and I think it'll fit in very nicely with the neighborhood.
Thank you. So Bruce, let's go through some of the criteria under the ordinance.
Well, before you get there, Mike, can you tell us a little bit more about the house?
Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
How big is the square footage of this house?
Approximately 2,100 square feet.
2,100, and it's a 2-story, it's obviously a poured basement, poured concrete, I guess?
It is poured concrete basement, yes.
And in your application, I know you talked a little bit about the setback issue and the, how much is the footprint going to take up? What's the dimensions? I'm sorry.
The depth of the footprint is about 43 feet deep. So front to back, which leaves us with a, I believe it's a 25-foot front yard and 25-foot rear yard.
So of the 10,800 square foot lot, how much, and forgive me, I'm tired and I'm dense, but how much of that 10,800 square feet would be occupied by the house?
I think it's about 1,050 for the footprint of the house.
Okay.
1,050 square feet.
Okay. All right, thanks. You can keep going, Mike. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, that's fine. Is there any other questions with regard to the house?
Yeah, I want to go back to the driveway and the street. So to the gravelly part, is that part of the dedicated street or not? Do you know that?
On South Barry Ave, the gravel part is part of the dedicated street, correct? Yes.
So are you going to pave that and the driveway up to the house, or are you going to expect the township to pave that?
I'm going to extend the driveway down to the new paving, or to the existing paving, sorry.
And the sewer is where in location to this lot?
The sewer is right at the intersection of South Barry and Fifth Avenue.
And the water as well?
The water is actually about a half a block up South Barry Avenue.
Do you know if your two closest neighbors, are they connected to the sewer and water by chance?
I really don't know, to be honest with you. I'm pretty sure they're hooked up to the sewer. I don't know if they're both hooked up to the water or not.
Okay, thank you.
Just getting back to the footprint of the house, the 1,050 square feet, that includes the garage as well?
It does, correct.
Thank you.
And Mike, you know we love paper roads, but that is still an existing road that hasn't been taken over through misuse by anybody? What is it, 21 years or?
Aha, you're thinking like a lawyer now.
To the best of my knowledge.
Okay, so it's still Lower Providence, owned
Yes.
and maintained, basically. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions with regard to the construction of the house or so I was just going to offer my exhibits, of course, and then just go through the criteria in the ordinance. So we're seeking variance, Bruce, and our unique physical circumstance or condition with regard to this property is at first it's undersized, and two, it's shallow. In other words, it's not deep enough to even have a building envelope on the property from, with regard to the front and the rear yard imposition of the setback. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
So because of those physical conditions, there literally is no possibility that this property can be developed in strict conformity with the provisions of the zoning ordinance.
It renders a building envelope of less than zero.
Less than what? I'm sorry.
Less than zero, they encroach on each other, the front
And-
yard and rear yard setbacks.
And you've put together these lots of 10,800 square feet, and that's what you were able to pull together with regard to this single house. And going to number 4, that would be consistent with the essential character of the neighborhood. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
As a result of those physical conditions with regard to the undersized lot and the shallowness of the lot, and that it's not deep enough to have a positive building envelope, it creates an unnecessary hardship that you've not created. You have these lots just under agreement. You've not created this by a subdivision or anything like that. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And you looked at the variance requests and the setback, the impervious coverage, and the building coverage, and you believe that this is the minimum variances to afford you relief, is that correct?
That is correct. I went through a bunch of different building footprints, and I think that this is the one, it's the smallest one that we could find that actually does fit into the character of the neighborhood.
Will there be any substantial increase in traffic congestion?
No, there will not.
Will there be any increase in the risk of fire or panic or endanger the public safety?
No, there will not.
Will this overcrowd the land or create undue concentration of population?
No, it will not.
Would this house on this lot be suitable for the property in question and consistent with the provisions of the ordinance?
Yes, I believe it is.
Would it intrude upon the adequacy of natural light or air to any of the adjoining properties?
No, it will not.
Would it create burdens on any public, private, or community water system, or groundwaters or wells within the neighborhood?
No, it will not.
Will it overburden the public sanitary sewer system within the township or occasion any environmental problems?
No, it will not.
Will it place undue burdens on police, fire, ambulance, or emergency services?
No, it will not.
Will it cause any adverse effects to the appropriate use of adjacent properties in the neighborhood?
I do not believe so.
And would it cause any risk or danger to the safety of persons or property by improper location of design of facilities for ingress or egress?
No, it will not.
Would it be otherwise adversely affect to the public health, safety, morals, and general public welfare of the community?
No, it will not.
And how do you know all that?
It's my opinion.
I'm sorry?
It's my opinion.
Your opinion based upon your
30
what?
years of building construction.
And your observation of the area?
Yes.
Have you built other homes in Lower Providence?
I have, yes.
So how long ago was that?
Probably the last one was 2008,
2008?
somewhere around there.
And when you built that house, did you have any problem with any of those criteria that you just recited? Or that Mike recited and you agreed to?
No, yeah, the answer is no, we did not have any problems with those issues.
Thanks.
Can you refresh for me, in front of your building, who owns that property in front going toward that white structure on Barry Avenue?
Yeah, Barry Avenue would be in between.
Is it gonna work?
Push the button here.
You mean across the street, the property across the street?
This, who owns
Oh,
that?
The property across the street, yeah.
Schultz is the last name, I believe? Oh, in between, you mean?
Yeah,
So it owns the house. I believe there's a 40-foot wide lot there in between.
There is, according to the tax map, if you look at, if you look under tab 5, I don't know if it shows it. Yeah, you'll see the lots there, you see the street, and then there's, looks like a 40-foot wide lot. And then,
You're saying where that crosshair is right there? Is that what you want, Madam Chair?
yes.
So Schultz owns this.
Correct.
There's a lot here. You're looking at these.
Correct,
in the street.
Street comes down, right, it comes down and goes like this,
The street comes down this way, too.
right.
Yes.
So this here too, right? That's part of that paper street, I guess.
So South Barry never went past Paper Road, South Barry, never went past Paper Fifth Avenue.
That is correct.
It did not go all the way through
It
at
did
any
not.
point to the circle. It ended at that point.
Right.
And it probably won't be because Mr. Bartholomew owns that land right there. So it's gonna terminate there, and then Fifth comes here.
Bartholomew owns over here.
Correct, yes.
Do you live close by or just owns it?
He's in Collegeville.
And he doesn't want to sell it.
He does not want to sell, no.
Or Mike, could you go back to the previous? So on that one, you are surrounded by yellow, but the little dog legs there are not actually part of the,
The little dog leg is just the driveway that connects into South Barry Avenue.
okay.
So that would be on the paper street.
Here is the issue, just looking at that, Mike, and that's a large house on a small piece of property.
We're waiting for the shoe to drop.
To address that, even
meet the-
considering it's 10,800 square feet, it's within the building coverage and the impervious coverage requirement. So it
Right,
It's not-
I do
it's
understand
not-
that, and you've got the width, because you're claiming that's the front of the house, so the 120 feet is more than the 100-foot width, you don't need a
Right.
variance for that,
Yeah,
just the front and back.
front and back
But-
and the square footage, but we can't do much about it. And the building coverage is well within. I mean, the calculations are on the plan. I know they're hard to read, but we can pull those off if you have some questions about that. We can get a
No,
larger
I
plan.
really don't, and, you know, but I think what our attorney mentioned earlier, you know, a lot of the properties in this township are undersized, but most of them were built years ago, and some were built more recently, but they were closer to the allowed amounts.
There
And, you know,
appears
this is only a little over 40%.
Yeah.
And I know there's no response, I guess I'm not really looking for a response, I'm just saying, you know, this is,
I see that there's a house for sale right up Barry,
Yeah.
fairly new
Sold.
home.
Yeah,
Right.
it's sold.
Yeah, it's sold.
Yeah, I was speaking with her over the weekend.
Okay, and that seems like a nice size house.
It's actually a bigger house than we're building.
Okay. So
We have
we're
a
within the building envelope
five-bedroom
and,
house.
you know,
But I think it's also a bigger lot.
I believe it
Yes,
is a bigger
so,
lot.
yeah.
but even if it weren't, it wasn't built now, if you see what I mean. It would have been built, maybe it was built in 1952 or 1927 or 1913, or it was built more recently, but within whatever the code was at the time.
well, I don't know when, that house looked fairly new to me, but I don't know.
Yeah, I believe it's probably from the 80s.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But in any event, Bruce, looking at 6, the aerial photo, you think this house would fit in nicely with regard to the houses in the area?
I think you'd have a hard time picking it out. I think it would fit right in.
So your house here that you're proposing is a two-story. What's this house here?
2 stories.
This is two-story as well, I guess.
They are all 2 stories.
Two-story.
Regency.
What about Schulte over here?
That is a 1-story house.
Looks like a smaller house.
It's a smaller rancher, yes.
What do you do, okay, you're going to pave this, right,
Correct, yes.
to bring it back. There's a paper street here, right?
Correct, yes.
Paper street is there presumably to get access to this in here.
Correct, yes.
So you're going to pave here, you're going to jog it here, right,
Correct,
to
yes.
get you a driveway here.
Yes.
How does that impact any future development in here?
Well, I put all those jogs in there so that it actually kind of mimics the paper streets as they sit. I didn't want to just draw a straight driveway right to the house, so I actually used those paper streets as the guide for the driveway. So,
But I'm concerned about what happens to that section of the paper street. And Mike, you can tell me, Mike Fury, if I have cause for concern or not. If you put a house here, you pave this, you then pave this to get to your driveway, and you're the only one using that, does that, in essence, threaten or challenge that paper street?
No. It doesn't, because anybody can use that paper street, including the owners of those properties. And anybody can use the paper streets and they have rights over it. And so anybody who wants to develop these pieces up there are going to be able to use that area that's paved there, and if they want to repave it or expand it or do whatever they want. But the point of the matter is, they're going to be able, the reason why Bruce drew it this way, so that it comes right down the paper street, right up the paper street, and then the driveway comes in. So if that paper street was extended, if it were extended, then they could just keep developing on it if someone wanted. So it's not going to, that's why I developed with him, the paper street's not being blocked, nothing's being built on it, and it's going to be open for other use.
Well, I'm thinking in terms of how we're going to deal with the issue of adverse possession hereafter.
I'm sorry, I'm not following you.
Well, if someone's built that specially for access to their home, and they're the only ones who use it for 21 years or more, and nobody objects to it, doesn't that create an ownership interest in that little jog?
But it's laid out on a paper street from a plan of 1923.
Right, but can't you adversely possess a paper street?
The only way to, only way to quiet title to that paper street is to file a petition for quiet title and either have everyone
Everybody.
shown on this 1923 map.
That's why I
join
asked
in
the
it.
question.
That's the only way you're going to be able to get title to that piece, okay, is by, it's virtually impossible, because what you're going to do is you'd have to quiet title to everyone that was on this original map, okay? So you'd have to get basically every one of those people to sign off to just exclusively use. Or serve them all, okay? So, and if one person objects, then you're not going to get adverse possession. It's virtually impossible, it is virtually impossible to get adverse possession on a paper street. It's open to, and it may not be able to be opened by the township, but it can be open and used, it can be used by anyone in those lots, in the original layout.
So the actual owner of this new house is really going to own just to here.
Just going to own the lot.
The rest of it is going to be a right-of-way.
The rest of it's going to be a paving over the paper street, which,
Right.
you know, anyone's allowed to use that paper street because it's there. So he's not blocking it, and he can't block it. He's got to let anybody else use it too. So
And
if somebody wants to-
and who
if somebody-
owns all of this back here? Do we know that?
Multiple different people?
Multiple entities, from what I could see, it's priced, it's a number of the same owners that own these properties here.
Mr. Fazio, is it fair to ask you the question, do you have an equitable interest in these properties back here?
I do, yes.
He did
He does,
indicate
he
that
does.
earlier, yes.
Yep,
But,
that's what
and
I
that's what
thought.
I was explaining. We were looking actually at a bigger development, but Bruce ran the numbers. We literally dropped off an application to the zoning hearing board, and he continued, and he just got numbers in a day or two after we dropped off the application, and he said the numbers aren't working. I don't think I can develop, well, I don't know. He's not sure. But he was concerned with regard to it, and so we.
Well, that's all well and good, but people change, they move on, they don't develop, they pass on, they do
Yeah.
all kinds of things. I'm just more concerned about what the impact will be, because you know what's going to happen. The house that you construct there and that you sell to somebody, they're going to be using that for eons, because nobody else is going to go back there. Because as you said, Mr. Fazio, the numbers don't work. So these neighbors that are here that are probably upset because they don't want to lose that wooded area, I'm surmising now, they're going to, in essence, not pay attention to it. And that owner of that new house is going to say, guess what? I now own this.
Well,
If a
if you
paper-
look at the the driveway that goes down to towards the bottom there, that gentleman is on that paper road every day. So he would, obviously, he would oppose any kind of adverse possession. There's actually a house down at the bottom of that picture.
It may all be an academic discussion, and I'm sorry to go off the tangent, but I'm just trying to think in terms of issues conditions. If this board were to grant this, I'm thinking in terms of conditions.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going with the
We're
question.
not going to close it off, and quite frankly, see, the law of paper streets is basically this, that, you know, you have 21 years for the township to open it or vacate it. If the township doesn't open or vacate, it's basically deemed to be owned by the owners of the two properties on both sides to the middle of
To the
the
center
street.
point, right.
But it doesn't erase everyone's rights over that land, okay? So everyone in on the subdivision where it was originally laid out has rights over that property, and the only way to extinguish them is by an action to quiet title, and you either have to get 100% sign-offs, okay, or the court's not going to grant you quiet title to that little piece of your driveway, because they're not going to give you exclusive possession of that piece. At least that's my understanding, and I stand to be corrected if you think that's wrong, but that's my understanding.
Mr. Fazio, do you know how far down this street goes before there's a house or a paved portion? By any chance, do you know that?
On which street?
Fifth?
This, from Sunnyside up, there are no houses on Fifth Street.
On that side? Okay.
Does the
On the
paper
other
road
side.
extend upper to?
Yeah, the paper
I can
road
see it goes up, but does it go all the way
extends
to
up-
the street?
It extends up to the back of the properties on Midland. So it dead ends right at the end of Midland, just like Fifth Street stopped at the back of Regency.
I'd be
Right.
curious when they built on Midland, how they took over ownership of that, because I'm assuming at one point the road had to go all the way through the paper street, what is, Fifth,
Well,
had to go all
the way it was
through.
subdivided, somebody owned a certain part, and they just did the movie lots on what they owned. So Midland, the property that was developed on Midland was not part of that original deed, so that's why the street just stops at the end of the property.
Okay, thank you.
And then on the other side of Sunnyside, there are, I believe, 3 houses on Fifth Street on the other side of
Right.
Sunnyside.
Anything else, Mr. Fury?
That's it. I don't believe the board needs a summary. I think I laid it out at the beginning.
One more quick question, because I was probably, I'm going to say, reading my notes when this came up. I think you mentioned earlier, exactly what are we looking at for a variance for the front and back lawns? Front and backyard, what,
25 and 25. It leaves you
25 and
about-
25?
Yeah, it leaves you about 40 to 40, about 40
yeah.
feet for the front and back. The side yards we meet, the building coverage we meet, the impervious coverage we meet, and of course, the square footage, the lot area.
great, thank you. I wasn't sure of that.
Just
I
lot
thought I
area-
remembered that, but I
Lot area,
wasn't sure.
front and back.
But the front and back in the application, I think you were saying that you wanted 25 feet for the front, where 50 is required, and you want 25 feet for the back, is that right?
Yeah, and it's about 90 feet deep, maybe just a couple other feet, but it's just around 90 feet deep.
Are there any other questions from the board? Are there questions from the audience? And I will say, these are the questions, not your testimony that says for or against. So do we have any questions? Sir, do you want to come up? Give us your name and your address, please.
Yeah, my name is Christopher C. Johnson. I'm in the house directly behind where they're building, 164 Regency.
You're the 2 cars.
Yes.
Okay.
We were on vacation last week, so we didn't talk to anybody. Mr. Fazio, you mentioned that the depth of the house is 43 feet?
Back up, can you use the microphone, please? Sorry to be the director here, but.
Yes, correct.
Okay, and you said 1,050 was the total?
I'm just,
Footprint?
I don't know off the top of my head, to be honest.
Yeah, I just did some math, and that makes it, at 1,050, that makes it 43 deep by only 26 feet across. So it's probably double that. So it's 2,000 square foot is the footprint.
No, well, I could be wrong on the 43 feet. I didn't exactly measure the house that we're doing right now, but the footprint's about 1,050.
No, we got 25 foot frontage, 25 in the back, that's 50. And the lot's only 97 feet, so that gives
I
you
think it's 92.
like 50 feet left to put the house in. So it's, you said 43, it's probably closer to 50. But anyway, that's still, at 1,000 square feet, for the whole footprint, that's still only, the width will only be half of that number, so that number's wrong. That's all I have now. I have other things to talk about. You want me to get into that, or you want to hold me to hold?
No, we want questions first, and then you'll have an opportunity to come back up and make
Okay.
other statements.
Yeah, nothing that I can, water is the big thing. We're all the neighbors are concerned about water. We all have water problems now. We all have several sump pumps.
Do you have a
Right,
question, though,
yeah,
about that for Mr. Fazio?
Just where they plan on putting the water from this one house, where is it going to drain to? Is there going to be a detention basin, which I doubt you can fit in there?
We will have a detention basin there. We have to catch all the water that comes onto the property. We have to get most of it into the ground. The engineer will figure out how much we have to get into the ground. Whatever does not get into the ground will be directed towards the stream. So it will not be going to the back of the Regency Drive.
Yeah, I'm just saying, we have water problems now with one thing but woods there, so I imagine putting impervious.
So now you're testifying, so do you have a question, another question?
Hard to keep.
Sorry, yeah, it's, you're new to this game, I suspect,
Yes,
so.
very new.
Which is okay. Questions, and then you can testify.
No, that's all I have, I guess.
Okay,
All right,
great,
thank you.
thanks.
Then you brought up a question for me. Mr. Fazio, is that lot wet now?
No, it's not. It has a gradual slope.
Okay. Did I see another, please come up.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Cynthia Brennan. I own a house on Regency Drive. I'm at 153, which is directly across the street from this gentleman here. Mr. Fazio, one of my first questions for you is whether you have done any type of environmental survey or investigation in terms of the underground water in that area, in terms of how your building project would affect the water situation that we do have on those properties in Regency, around Regency?
Nothing has been done at this point, but it will have to be done as part of the engineering of the lot. In order to get a building permit, we have to maintain the E&S plan and everything, which actually takes care of all the stormwater, and it does all those tests as far as that goes, how much water will actually seep into the ground and how much we have to get rid of also.
Okay, and that's something that you plan on doing
It has to
before
be-
you start to build?
It has to be done before
I'm
you...
not sure what the building
No, it has to be
requirements are,
done
so-
as part of the building permit process, and the building permit cannot be issued until everything is worked out and the township engineer reviews it and makes sure everything is done the right way.
Okay.
So it's from our engineer to the township engineer, and once that's all approved, then you can apply for a building permit, but it has
Okay.
to be done ahead of time.
Okay. As I understand it, you want to build the house on this property, and you plan on selling that to a prospective buyer?
That is correct,
Do
yes.
you have a buyer that is already?
Ma'am, can you use the
Oh,
microphone more? I'm sorry, otherwise we're
I'm
not
so
going to pick
sorry.
up. That's okay.
Do you have a particular buyer that has expressed interest in buying that home, should you build on it?
No, but if you have someone, I'd be happy to talk to them.
Do you yourself plan on living in this home?
I do not, no.
Is it your intent, when you build the home on this property, to secure possession of the other lots so that you can build future homes on other lots by combining them like you are trying to do here?
I started out that way about 5 or 6 months ago, and what happened was once all the numbers came in from the builders and from the realtors, how much we can sell the properties for, and then if you take into consideration all the costs that you have to put into for putting in new roads and everything, it turned out that it's not feasible, so that's why we're just doing the one house right now.
And are you saying that it's not feasible now, and it might be in the future, or are you not going to develop any more of that land at any time?
I would love to see it work out so that it would be feasible in the future, but I can't foretell what's going to happen.
Right, but that's something that you would pursue if there was an opportunity for you to do it?
As a developer, I think anybody would.
Okay. In terms of your interest in developing this property, is your interest in doing this solely for a financial gain for you?
Well, that's what keeps the business running, but my goal and what I've done for the past 30 years is I mainly get first-time buyers into homes. That's what my business is.
Right, but I mean, the point is, if you are purchasing this land for whatever price you purchase it at, you're going to build a home and you're going to sell it.
Correct. Yes.
And that results in a financial gain to you.
I think we can
Hopefully.
stipulate to
But, I
that.
mean,
Hopefully.
right, but you don't have any interest remaining in the land once you sell it off to a purchaser of the home.
That is correct, yes.
So if you are not granted the variance to build on this property, what is your loss in not being able to do that is solely financial?
I haven't really gone down that road yet. I guess we'll have to see what happens.
Okay, that's all I have, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else have questions? Please come up.
Jeez, I can't.
Ian, are you back there? Still awake?
My vocals aren't too good. Hope you can hear me.
Yes.
That's, you can take that out of there if you want, so you don't have to lean over as much. Just take it on out of there and
Your name and where, your address,
Yeah, my
please?
name is Bob Brown. I live at 123 South Middle Avenue. A retention pond was mentioned and kind of blown over here a few minutes ago. I'd like to know where this retention pond is going to be built. If there's only a 25-foot setback on this property, is he going to build this retention pond on a property he doesn't own?
you can ask him directly. I guess that's a question to you, Mr. Fazio.
It's not actually a retention pond. It's called a seepage bed, and they can be under driveways, they can be in your yard, it can be in a bunch of different places. The only way you would know that there was one there is that there's usually 2 vents sticking out of the ground. It would almost look like a sewer vent cap that you would have in your front yard for your sewer line. So that's the only way that you would know there's a seepage bed underneath that.
On the paperwork you brought around and gave everyone, there was no mention of a retention basin on this site.
If you would have asked me, I certainly would have explained it to
I
you.
shouldn't have to ask you. You're the ones doing this job.
I met with over 50 people on Saturday, so I'm sorry, but I was really busy.
All right, thank you.
If I could just, one point, and I have to apologize, But we do have the engineered drawings here, and it wasn't 1,050 square feet. It's based on an 1,800 square foot building envelope. And that was from the engineers, and thank goodness Mike actually just pointed that out to me. But it is on the engineered drawing.
That's on the plan that's attached, but I know that it's very small, so
And based on that 1,800 square feet, we're still within the,
So did you hand out magnifying glasses for all of us when you gave us the plan?
Any other questions from the audience? In the back, please.
Yeah, my name's Jerry Coons, and I talked to you, on Saturday before I got the notice that they were having this hearing.
You have a booming voice, Mr. Coons, but please use that
I'm sorry.
microphone.
I'm
Thanks.
sorry. And you avoided a lot of questions, too, when I asked you.
Is that a question, or?
Now, how much water on a rainy day is going to run off the top of that roof?
we collect all the water runoff from the downspouts.
How many gallons would you say?
It depends on how hard it rains, but all that water goes into our seepage bed.
Okay.
So the water now that runs onto the back of in the back of your yards off of Regency, we're going to be catching that water. And
How about the underground stream that goes back there to all the houses?
well, we don't know where that stream is yet, but if we do come across it, we will have to make adjustments for that.
Now, are you going to put sidewalks into?
I don't believe so. It's not with the
It's not in the code?
neighborhood. There does not have sidewalks.
Okay, how about when you develop the other areas that you were taking interest in?
I don't have an answer for that because that's not being.
And how much water is going to accumulate on the roads now that that driveway that you're going to put in there? That's more water too. Where's that run?
Every area that's impervious, we have to catch that water and we have to deal with it. We're not allowed to just let it run wherever it wants to run. So it's actually going to, even this one little lot, it's going to help with the drainage.
I doubt that. No, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Just so, to the board, by code, we're going to have to control all that water. We're gonna have to-
You're not using your microphone, Michael.
By code, we're going to have to address all that water and comply with all the township requirements with regard to the earth disturbance, so.
And the township engineer actually reviews our plans before any building permits would be
Mr. Mrozinski, is that correct? Use your microphone. Your name is Mike.
It is, thank you. And that actually segues to my question for Mr. Fury. To what degree of land development plan will you have to submit, assuming that you're granted the relief tonight?
I haven't gone that far, as far as the level, but I'm sure it's going to be what the township would prefer as far as that goes.
But there'll have to be some sort of land
Yeah,
development.
but there's going to at least have to be an earth disturbance permit and
There's
and
an
building permit.
E&S process.
An
There's no
E&S
land development.
Review.
But you're also,
It's a single home, so it's not technically going to be a land development, but I'm sure there's going to be a permit and a building permit and an earth disturbance.
The E&S plan, it's very intense.
right, no, I'm familiar with that. I'm getting at the fact that you're consolidating lots, and so my assumption is that that'll invoke some degree of.
So you're thinking that the reverse subdivision may invoke some level of a land development process?
That's what I'm thinking, but I'm asking.
We need to get past the zoning first, as far as that goes, and then, we'll have to figure out from the township what you require.
Okay.
Any other questions? In the back?
Well, wait, Mr. Kunz, you had someone else that raised her hand, and we want to give her the opportunity, because you already were shining, so it's her turn.
Hi, I'm Sandra Spezio. I'm at 2806 3rd Street. My question was, you mentioned about handing out the plans on Saturday.
Correct.
Did you select what neighbors you gave them to? Because I know I received one, but I know my neighbor next to me did not, so I didn't know if that was by choice.
Actually, what happened was I actually asked Mike Mrozinski at the township office what neighbors were going to be notified. So I made sure that I got to all the neighbors that were notified, And then I also handed out a few others. I noticed there were people in yards, so that I could actually approach them and hand them a packet that were not on the list, but everyone that was on the list, I actually either spoke with or dropped off a packet.
Okay. I don't believe that's the case, but, and then is there a reason why you chose Saturday? Because I know Saturdays are a common day for everybody to be out and about, and to me, if you really wanted to reach as many residents as possible, you would have chosen maybe a weeknight where people are home that you can talk to them instead of dropping off a letter 5 days before this board meeting.
Well, I've been doing this for years and years, and I've found that the most response that you get are on a nice day over the weekend. That's when most people are going to be outside doing their thing, and that's the easiest way to be able to get to talk with people.
Okay. Also, you mentioned several times that you reached out to the owner of those couple lots, Bartholomew, you kept saying.
Correct.
Did he give you a reason as to why he was not selling? Because, I mean, I would only assume that if you're not selling land that you have, you don't want it to be developed, and you are developing land right next to his land.
No, he just, first of all, have sent him, I would say, in excess of 6 letters to buy his land. I've never had a response back from him, which is why this past winter, one of my realtors actually knows his wife, so I actually had her go talk with the family to see if they were interested in selling, and they just said, no, they're not interested in selling anything.
Okay, and I believe my last question is, when you went around, what day did you go around asking
Saturday.
for the signatures?
Saturday, it was the same.
Oh, the same day. The signatures on the list, did you ask if they were homeowners?
I did not.
Okay, because I did recognize at least one name that was not a homeowner, somebody that resides in the home, but not the homeowner. And another name on the list is somebody that...
Now you're testifying,
Sorry.
though.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? And okay.
Everybody's getting emboldened as they hear more people. Hopefully, it's a different question.
Ed Boss, 156 Regency Drive. About the water. You mentioned that anything that doesn't go in your catchment basement, is that what it is?
A seepage bed. Yeah.
You would go to the stream. How far is the lot that you want to build on from the stream, and how do you get the water that you don't catch to the stream?
It's kind of hard to see there, but from our lot that we're proposing development on down...
Mr. Fazio, we can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Okay. From the lot that we're proposing to build on to the stream, it's downhill, and there's also a paper street there, 5th Street, paper street is that way, so we can actually shoot the water down the paper street so it runs into the creek.
So there's nothing like you
It's a
dig up like a
it's
pipe
gravity.
and add it to the stream?
We don't need a pipe, no, it's actually gravity fed.
Okay, and how far is it? You don't...
I would believe it's, no, actually it's right here. It looks like about 200 feet.
200 feet. And how do you know, like, any water that you don't get there, like, how are you going to grade it so it goes to the stream? And
Well,
If you don't own that
I'm not the
land.
engineer, so the engineer will have to figure that one out.
all right, thank you, that's it.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Mr. Coons, you wanted to come back up for encore?
I have a question. Do you know where 5th Street and 4th Street's going to be in that?
Again, the microphone, I'm sorry to
I'm
interrupt you.
sorry. He was tall. Where is 5th Street and 4th Street located in the movie lots? Do you know where they're at?
Yeah, where's the... So, this is Barry, here's 5th Street here, Paper Street, 5th Street.
This is where you need to pick up that microphone.
Okay, so this is the 5th Street, Paper Street here, and this continues up to the back of the South Midland properties and stops. And then here is the 4th Street, Paper Street, which also continues up to the backyards of the South Midland Street.
Okay, now who owns that property? The streets itself?
The paper streets are not owned by anyone unless they are claimed by the property owners on either side.
Okay, Township doesn't own that?
That is correct, they do not.
Okay.
Any more questions? Any questions generated for the board? Now's your chance to give your testimony, and you'll need to be sworn in. Anyone have anything else to say? Yep. Yes. Yes, you can talk freely, yes.
But you need to be sworn in.
Yeah.
One of our, the other neighbor next to me is on vacation. He couldn't be here, but he has a letter that he'd like. I'll let that go first.
Patrick Duffy. I do.
And can you give us your address, please?
Good evening. Patrick Duffy. I live at 100 Regency Drive. I live at the other end of Regency Drive. One of my neighbors, Mr. Stefanikowitz, received the notice on Saturday in the mail. He's been at 160 Regency Drive for 33 years. Unfortunately, he got on a plane Sunday morning for a pre-planned trip and is unable to be at this meeting, hearing, even though he wanted to be a party. He contacted Mr. Mrzinski and asked that it be continued. Unfortunately, that request was not granted, so he has asked me to read this letter on his behalf. I am here solely in my personal capacity as a neighbor to Mr. Stefanikowitz. May 22nd, 2019, to the members of the Zoning Hearing Board. I request this letter be read aloud and in its entirety for everyone at the meeting to hear. Apologies for my absence, but due to an extremely short notice, there was insufficient time to fully understand what is being planned in terms of the effect this variance will have on our water issues as noted below. My one question for the Zoning Hearing Board: has the developer shown proof of movie lot ownership? I understand that the developer has no standing to request a variance if there is no proof of property ownership. I assume that's been dealt with, but that's his letter.
Right, he has equitable ownership as a result of the agreements, so.
My concern for this variance request are as follows. 1, stormwater runoff. A high water table and underground springs have plagued the neighborhood since our homes were built. Current concern is how water runoff for this house will be addressed. Many neighborhood houses have 2 and as many as 3 sump pumps. Our home outputs as much as 13,000 gallons every day. 2, neighbor development, all in accordance with the Township 25,000 square foot minimum, has occurred over the years, such that further development of these previously unused property no longer fits within the character and the positive development of existing properties. 3, granting this variance and the subsequent building on these 4 movie lots will set precedent for developing the many remaining movie lots located up the hill. Developer has already cleared trees, conducted property line surveys, and claimed to have purchased lots up there. It is unlikely that he will walk away from this investment. 4, the further development will cause a disruption of water runoff channels created in these woods over the years by nature, undoing what has taken residents decades to resolve, as described above. As soon as the ground is broken, residents will be forced to deal with new water issues as more stormwater will flow towards our homes. With fewer trees and plants to disperse rain, and as more homes, foundations, driveways, and streets are laid, downhill residents will suffer the consequences. 5, this proposed single-home development and likely future development of all the movie lots would result in higher residential density that is not compatible with the existing neighborhood. 6, last but not least, this would be the sad loss of another township wooded green space, home to an abundance of wildlife, insects, and flora. In conclusion, if the variance is to be considered, it must be required to have an appropriate expert investigate the impact that the dwellings would have on water drainage. I believe that granting the variance will alter the essential character of the neighborhood, result in undue burden and hardship to current residents, and be detrimental to public welfare. Please deny the application. Thank you. Jim Stefanikowitz, 160 Regency Drive. And a copy of the letter was provided to Mr. Mrzinski earlier today. Thank you.
How do you want to handle, thank you, Mr. Duffy. How do you want to handle that, Mr. Fury?
Well, I wanted to, of course, accord courtesy to Mr. Duffy, considering his position with the township, to read the letter from a resident. But the resident's not here. Mr. Duffy's not representing him as an attorney, so obviously he cannot be a party to the matter. Just so Mr. Stevanovic is not a party or granted party status, because he can't be granted party status in this circumstance, the statement stands for itself.
And do you have any objection to the statement being provided to the board?
I object if there is any weight given to it as Mr. Stefanik being a party to the matter. You can't grant him party status, that's what I'm saying.
If I may, on behalf of Mr. Stefanowicz,
Of
I would
course.
ask that the hearing be adjourned and continued at a time when he can be here to be a
No,
party.
I'm not objecting to the reading of the letter. The letter was read. I would have objected at the beginning if I objected to the letter. All I'm saying is the gentleman who is not here and not represented by counsel, okay, cannot have standing in this case. He can't be granted standing as a party. But I didn't object to the letter. I would have objected before the letter was read.
Mr. Duffy, do you know what Mr. Stefanowicz's perspective would be? Does he want to be a party, or he just wanted to make the statement?
He wants to be a party. He reached out to Mr. Merzinski and asked to be a party, indicated he wanted to be a party, and asked that the hearing be continued until a time that he could be here. Like I said, he got notice of the hearing on Saturday. He boarded a flight on Sunday.
Now we need to get to a point where, Mr. Duffy, you're an attorney?
I am.
Okay, are you representing this gentleman?
I've been asked to come here and represent him for the purposes of reading the letter and advising the board that he wishes to be a party.
With all due respect, I don't see how someone else can represent someone unless they're representing them as an attorney. Okay, if they're representing someone as an attorney, you can appear for that person. A person who is not an attorney or acting as someone's attorney cannot appear here and act on that person's behalf. It just can't happen. So I didn't object to the letter. I wanted to respect, of course, Mr. Duffy's a supervisor in the township. I want to respect the fact that he has a constituent who wanted the letter read, and I did not object to the letter, and the board can surely consider the letter. I'm not objecting to the admission of the letter. All I'm objecting to is for him not to be a party, because he's not here.
For the record, I'm not here as a supervisor.
I understand.
I am here as a resident of Regency Drive, speaking, although my property does not abut this property, I'm here speaking on behalf of my neighbor who wished to be here but is unavailable.
Well, the rub is whether he's going to be permitted to be a party, and he's not here. His appearance could be entered by counsel, if that's the role that you would be playing in that instance, or you as a resident, even though you may not be within the 500 feet radius or whatever, you could, in essence, adopt that statement as your own, and you could be the party if you wanted to be.
And I'm happy to do that.
That solve the problem?
I don't know if Mr. Duffy has standing to be a party. I don't know how far he lives from this property.
Well, I think he still has standing as a township resident.
Well, he doesn't, okay, you can make a statement, but whether you have standing as a party in a zoning case are two different things. Someone who lives 2 miles away or a mile away does not have standing to be a party.
Well, I'm not so sure that's the
That is
case,
exactly the case. That is exactly
because he can still talk about issues associated with public safety and overcrowding, because it's all the township.
I'm talking about someone having standing as a party that will be able to appeal the decision of the board if the board grants relief. That's all I'm talking about. Talk about standing as a party. In order to be able to appeal the decision of the board if the board grants us relief. I have no objection to the statement being read. I have no objection to Mr. Duffy reading the statement. No objection to Mr. Duffy making the statement on his own behalf. My point is that either someone who is here has to have standing, will be represented by counsel, to have standing in order to be a party to this matter, to appeal the decision of the board if you grant approval.
And I don't,
Mr. McClellan, I've read the letter. There are other residents that have received notice from the township within 500 feet that would be happy, I'm sure, to be a party and adopt the statement as well.
right. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, Gregory Stefankevich. I am the son of James Stefankevich, the person that lives on 160 Regency Drive. Spell it, STEFANKIEWICZ.
I'm sorry, is that the same gentleman whose letter was just read, or is that a different person?
Son, it sounds like.
Correct.
Family member.
So
I am.
Can I just establish that you live in the house?
I do.
You live in the house?
I live at 160 Regency Drive.
Are you going to testify, or how are you going to, you're going to have to be sworn in?
I'm just making the statement that
Then you have to
everything
be
that is-
sworn.
Yeah.
I'm here to represent everything that is in that letter, everything that was stated, and I am representing the party that is James Stefankevich.
Well, it's the same problem, though, isn't it? So you're a party, you want to be a party because you live in the home. Is that correct?
Correct.
So you would, in essence, enter your appearance. So you could be your dad's surrogate, if you will. If your dad is committed to appealing anything, he would have to do it through you, although I don't know that someone has to be here to be a party. But in any event,
They have to be present to, and they have to substantially participate in here.
so you're going to have to enter your appearance. Michael, you have the form. You'll sign off on it, and you're adopting what Mr. Duffy read, correct?
Correct.
That gets you off the hook easier. You don't have to say it all over again.
Indeed.
And did your father receive notice of this hearing?
On Saturday.
No, you could receive notice from the township.
Of the
Within
hearing?
500 feet?
Correct.
Do you have any cross-examination of that issue?
Do you have anything additional that you'd like to add?
Nothing additional, just wanted to make that clear.
Just one,
Okay.
you have no ownership of the interest in the property, right? You just live there?
Indeed, I do live there, correct.
Thank you.
But before you go, you have to sign the form with Mr. Rosinski. Bring that microphone
Sorry,
down, yes.
I'm short.
Are you testifying?
I'm testifying.
Name?
Great, over here.
Cynthia Brennan, Brennan. I do.
And tell us again where you live.
I live at 153 Regency Drive, which is directly across from where the planned home is, and directly across from this gentleman here who owns the home closest to that lot. The property that we're talking about, these movie lots, have been in existence for however long they've been in existence as movie lots. The homes on Regency Drive were built after these movie lots are already in existence. Our neighborhood, I know my home was built in 1975. So our development impacted the properties around that area in terms of what the character and the nature of the neighborhood is. Unfortunately, because of the development that occurred around these movie lots, the movie lots are somewhat problematic in terms of what you can do with them. So I don't believe that the movie lots, in terms of combining them into one lot to put one house on, fits with the character of the neighborhood, not only because the lot size is significantly smaller than the homes on Regency, for example, but also because of the impact it would have on the water in the Regency Drive area. Our water is so bad in that area, the underground seepage of water is so bad that my sump pumps, which I have 2 of and a backup, run 24/7. I pump out water every single day. So whatever water is going to be collected in this collection device that he has planned isn't the only water that's going to affect Regency Drive. The other water that he doesn't catch, which goes underground, is going to seep to the lowest area where it can, which is not only going to be on this gentleman's property, but is also going to come onto my property. I'm at one of the low spots in that cul-de-sac. So I think our neighbors have a legitimate concern over the water issue that this is going to create for the rest of the neighborhood. And if the board is inclined to consider a variance, I would ask that that Mr. Fazio be required to provide some sort of environmental study or environmental impact study to determine what the real effect is going to be on the rest of the surrounding area. Also, it is pretty clear to me that not only does Mr. Fazio want to develop these 4 lots, but his intent is to build houses on the other lots that he can get his hands on.
So?
Because I'm just saying, he's in it for economic gain.
Yeah,
As
so?
I understand variances, a variance for a dimensional variance, if his only harm in not getting that variance is economic, insufficient to grant a dimensional variance. His only interest in these properties is economic. He's not going to live here. He's going to sell these homes to somebody else. And then he's going to leave, take his profit, and go develop some other property. So if his only interest, his only hardship that he has shown, and he really didn't even admit to that, is economic, and that is an insufficient basis on which to grant a dimensional variance. Thank
Well
you.
done.
Thank you.
Can I respond? Should I respond to that?
Well, you can. It's up to you if you want to.
Sure. The hardship arises from the land and the configuration of the land. Okay? The fact that someone is building a house there and may gain some type of pecuniary benefit from building a house, anyone who builds a house there, okay, is going to gain some type of benefit from it, even if they build it for themselves and then eventually sell it. The point of the matter is that the hardship is being granted to the applicant with regard to the land. It's not just what the applicant's hardship is, it's the hardship that arises from the land itself. And I think we were very clear about that hardship and based on the land itself, not based on economics.
Any other persons? The lady behind you first, since you've had an opportunity.
And let me just, the woman in this white sweater, come on up. But let me just preface continued testimony, and I don't want to have a chilling effect on anybody testifying. The water issue, we get it. Okay? You don't have to beat a dead horse on that issue. That is a factor that goes into consideration when deciding whether a variance should be granted or not. It's not the only one, but it's one. Whatever a developer does with the property, they have to deal with the water. And we all deal with the water in one way or another, and we've all been impacted by groundwater and surface water. So it's a long way of saying you can talk about the water, but only if it's a new issue. We've already heard about the water elsewhere. Okay? Go ahead. Sorry.
My name's Paula Landis. I'm at 2810 3rd Street. And I don't know if I have a request.
You need to be sworn in, unless you're going to only ask questions.
I think it's a request. I'm not sure.
Okay, a request is a question, so ask the request.
Okay. Because Mr. Fazio admitted to the fact that he did not know if all the homeowners on the petition or all the people on the petition were homeowners, I don't know how much weight the board holds for consideration, but I think that that petition should not be considered if he doesn't know that the people that he spoke to were actually homeowners that signed it.
That's sort of a legal argument, but I don't know that it disqualifies that he hasn't spoken to all of them because they've all been notified, and whether they choose to come forward or not. The question, though, Michael, that I have is that somebody else had said this, and that is that they only heard about this on Saturday. I mean, what's the mailing matrix delivery date? Do you know?
Let me look it up.
Perhaps I should know that if you've given it to me already. I'm sorry to say I didn't see it, but.
It's either 7 or 10 days, usually 7 days. Posting is usually 7 days.
Right, but I'm just trying to figure out when this one in particular was.
May 15th.
May 15th.
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So is the board telling me that they don't really consider a petition signed by neighbors? Is that what you're telling me?
No, we're not. We do.
You do. So just to make sure you get my point,
Yes.
2 of the names on there were people who had just sold their house, and another one was the granddaughter of a homeowner that lives there. And so Mr. Fazio was asked, does he know if the other ones are homeowners? He said he did not know. So I don't think that it's fair to have that petition considered in your decision.
But the rule is to mail notice to the people within 500 feet, yards, whatever, I don't remember, of the subject property. And if that's done, it satisfies the ordinance.
Okay.
Now, whether it's to someone's in-laws, someone's tenant, that kind of thing, it all depends upon what record the township would
So it
have.
doesn't matter if an actual signature is on a petition, so a petition is actually null and void?
No, it's not null and void, and this is not a popularity contest either. I mean, it's a factor that the board looks at,
Okay.
but it's not really a factor that necessarily is in this ordinance that says if you have more people who say no than more people who say yes, then
That's what I'm asking.
It doesn't work that way,
Okay.
no. But
All right.
thank you for
Thank
asking
you.
the question.
Thank you.
It's a factor, don't get me wrong. The board considers it, but it's not a popularity contest.
Thank
Come on up. Oh, no,
Ladies first.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You didn't,
Yeah,
you didn't have
should we-
eyes, you didn't have eyes behind your head to see her waving and jumping.
I just have one question. Are you in partner with anybody about, it's just a question, sorry. Oh, Sandra Spezio. Are you in partner with anybody of this, or were you, or are you of relation or in conjunction with the Bruce Fazio who was jailed for property?
What does that have to do with
issues?
anything?
If he's a partner of him, he had some building issues.
I do not have any partners.
Okay, thank you.
Can we just address the one?
You can address whatever you want.
Get the mic.
When you went around to the neighborhood, just, I wanted Bruce to ask if the people live there. Go ahead.
One of the main questions I ask after I ask for their support is I make sure that they live there. I say, do you live here, and can I ask for your support? So if they said no, I would not have let them sign.
So they did live there, but they didn't own, because that was not the follow-up question.
I did not
Yeah.
ask if they owned, I just asked
Right.
if they lived there.
Well, a couple of them might have been tenants, as far as you know. Right, right.
Anyone else? Now, sir, you can get up again.
Save the best for last.
You're right. I guess I should swear in Christopher Johnson.
Please use that microphone, my
I will.
friend.
Isn't the correct process to get neighbors that are within 500 feet involved in something like this to send out a certified letter?
No.
Maybe several days before, and a lot more than 5 days?
No.
No? Just dropping it off in the door qualifies?
Well, no, it's mail.
What if it blows away? It's stuck at my front door. What if it blew away?
It was from the post office.
Excuse me?
It should have been from the.
No, it was just
Sir, there's two
a
different things.
folder. It was not a letter. It was not a letter. It was just folded in half and shoved
Can I
in the
just
door.
explain something? There are two different things that happen here. The township sends notices to the owners of the property that are on the list within 500 feet. Mr. Fazio himself went around and dropped off packets or flyers or whatnot explaining what he was doing to the neighbors. So that's maybe what you're talking about as well. So Mr. Fazio and the township both canvassed the area.
I didn't get anything in the mail. Just this folder was stuck in my front door. That's all I got.
All right, we have a list of people that were mailed, so we'll check that.
Okay.
No, I was just going to comment that there's a couple of ways that notice is required, one of which is the mailing. Another is that it's advertised in a newspaper, which I recognize nobody reads a newspaper anymore. And the other is they post the property too. So I suspect some people probably saw some posting at some point, and that's stirred a little tempest as well. But if you didn't get it, then something happened with the mailing, because I know what Mike does when he does this, and he sends out this mass mailing, and I presume that you're probably on the mailing matrix.
Well, I think we can get past it because the gentleman's here.
Somehow you got notice.
Well, I'll find the flyer in my door.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only obviously the 4 or 5 homes that are backed up to this entire property, none of those people signed, and none, there's only one person here, 2 or 3 people here, 2 people that are here that are, plus myself, that are backed up to that property. None of those people signed the signature list that went around. And lastly, I just want to, you guys know what a 2-car garage dimensions is, basically 20 feet by 20 feet. Well, putting this house behind me is going to be 25 feet away from me. So I'm basically going to have the width of my 2-car garage over the property line. That's what I'm going to have in my backyard in plain sight. So
Where's that, Michael? Where's that picture? Sorry to interrupt you there. And you're going to have to fill out one of these deals too.
it looks a lot more there, but I don't know what the angle was, but where the property line is there, it would be basically the width of my driveway.
Which one are
is
you?
actually
You're
more
this
than-
one?
Yes, I am there.
So you're saying it's only going to be 25 feet?
Yeah, 25 feet is what they're asking for.
Right
And
here,
that-
from the
right,
line?
Right.
And then how much between here and
I
your?
probably have 20 feet there.
So yours is already non-conforming. Sorry, Paul, I just shot you with that.
Maybe it's
Right.
30.
But that's, essentially, that's what you
I
have
had when I bought
already.
the house 20 years ago, so I didn't do anything with it. The shed in the back corner, that's right on the property line, basically 5 feet off the property line. in the
That
back.
one there?
Yes.
That was the right answer,
Yes.
'cause it's only allowed to be 5 feet. so.
So, I mean, it's going to be very close, very close. And I know I can't say anything about progress or building, but it's going to be right there when I have people staring at me from the back of their house or whatever. So it's just, I think that's ridiculous for the setback, 25 feet. It's just crazy.
But yet, that's basically what you have.
Yes, but there's nobody living right on the property line there, so.
Understood.
That's it.
Okay.
Can I just ask the gentleman one question?
Yes.
Do you know what the distance between your house and the house next door to you?
No idea. I probably have, it's probably 50 feet, maybe more, 75.
It doesn't appear to be.
You mean here?
Between those two corners?
Yeah. The property opens up. It's pie-shaped. It goes
Yeah, it's-
on a curve. It opens up as it goes back. The shed, the right side, the top side of the shed
This?
is basically the property, yeah, it's a property line running down between the two houses.
Right there.
Yes. So from that angle, my house is basically cutting off a piece of that view.
That answer your question?
I don't, I think the board can look at the diagram and determine the distance between those two houses as compared to the distance between the new house proposed and his existing house.
So your argument is that it's the same, it's essentially, it's no harm, no foul either way?
It's really, yeah, I mean, no one's complying with the 60-foot rear yard setback anyway.
And lastly, if they decide to buy the lot next to them from the township owns, they're still only going to have a 97.7-foot depth. And they're still going to have the same issue if they put up in other houses. It's still going to be the same setback all the way up that street, up that paper street. Whether it happens or not, they're not gaining anything on the depth of the lot. They're only gaining more on the sides, which they already have setback requirements now that they need, but it's not going to do anything by acquiring more lots. That's it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
But can I ask you a question, and this is really not on the subject, I'm just kind of curious. The houses on Regency were built in 75, I think somebody said.
78 something.
Were they part of a development where there's a reason they were given permission to have less of a setback in the rear, or was that as part of a development program where their land was set aside? I'm just curious that we do run into this.
Well, we don't know
where-
what the ordinance was then either.
It's true, it could have been much less at that time. I'm just wondering if anybody who lives on Regency knows how that came into being.
The only person that knows is the one that's not here.
Okay. Thank you. I was just curious, that's all it was.
You might have an answer back there. Mr. Coons wants to jump in.
No,
Oh, yeah, please.
I know that my realtor, when I purchased my home on Regency about 5 years ago, told me that the Regency Drive cul-de-sacs were part of a plan. It wasn't just, house and then a house and then a house. It was part of a development plan. And I believe that the property in that area was a farm before they developed it, and they were all developed right around the same time.
Did you sign in with your, you're entering your appearance? You're good?
I did.
You did, okay. Mr.
did.
Coons, did you do it?
Not yet.
You're going to do it? Yes, I am. All right.
I have another question.
You're just full of questions, aren't you?
Do I get sworn in? I think it's.
You're going to ask a question, or are you going to testify?
I guess I'll testify.
Then you're going to get
Okay.
sworn in.
Okay. My name is Gerald J. Coons. I live on 148 Regency Drive. K-U-N-Z.
But
So help me God, yes.
And we do that because it's not just a formality, the swearing in, but when you're going to add.
I swore into the
Right,
military, so I.
So you know the drill, but, so go for it.
Okay. Mr. Fazio, you remember meeting me on Saturday?
I certainly do, yes.
Okay, I came to you, and what did I ask you? I said, I thought you were a politician because it was because it was election day. I wanted to see what you had
It's
to
a
say.
reasonable suspicion, right?
Right. But the flyer that you handed out, did any of the board members see the flyer that was handed out?
Wasn't introduced as evidence.
I'd
so
like
we
to
haven't seen it.
introduce it as evidence, because the way he approached everybody to sign that petition, it says, I'll just get to the point, it says, "We combined 6 undersized lots to one lot, 10,800 square feet." And he says, "We feel that this home would help raise the value of your surrounding homes." instead of 6 tiny homes. So right there, you're misleading everybody, and it doesn't say anything about the frontage or anything on any of this at all. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Can I present this to you?
Be your exhibit, sure.
But that's how I approach people. And the one person I talked to afterwards, he says, I didn't know that was about the heating and sun.
You want to see this?
Oh, no, we've seen it.
You have any objection to it?
No, of course not. I think the next 2 pages are actually the 2 renderings.
Correct.
Just the,
Correct.
Everyone else is attached there, but
It's the same thing as part of your packet.
let me just make sure it is what Mr. Fazio hung where else. Thank you so much.
Is there anyone else while they're, anyone before you?
Thank you.
Nope, okay, come on.
Is this a Columbo moment or something? I mean,
Now, what I was concerned about was when the original slide that was up there, they had only 4 parcel numbers listed up there. And the letter we got says they're combining 6 parcels.
Six blocks and unit numbers comprised of 4
Is that what it
tax
is?
parcels with 3 owners.
Okay. Thank you.
That's why that's not misleading, because they're inconsistent.
we've endured this long. Is there anyone else who wants to testify? Or anything else you want to say in rebuttal, Mr. Fury?
Just, you need to look at this 10,800 square feet and determine whether anything else can be done with this property other than to build a single-family home, and it can't be. And without the dimensional variances, and only the dimensional variances are absolutely necessary, the only things that are requested. You know, we were in law school over 30 years ago, and we studied zoning law. This was the classic zoning variance case. This is what we learned was the classic case. This is not one of these things where we're coming in and asking the board to, you know, give someone a side yard variance when they really want to put up a pool and they really don't have a hardship. This is an absolute hardship. The hardship is there, and the basis for granting the variances have been established. So thank you.
Before you leave that microphone, since we need to get your melodic voice as well, some housekeeping. You saw Mr. Coons' exhibit. You have no
Yes.
objection to that?
No objection
We're calling
whatsoever.
it Coons 1. How's that, Mr. Coons? Is that okay with you? We're marking this as Coons 1. Is that okay with you? K-U-N-Z. Got it. Mr. Fazio, this application that attaches Exhibit 1 to the packet that your attorney provided, is that your signature on that document?
Yes, that is.
And is this a true and correct copy of what it was that you submitted as the application?
Yes, that's correct.
You have better eyes than I do. Mr. Mrozinski has provided me with a number of things, Mr. Fury, that we need to obviously introduce into the record. And the first thing that I have is a copy of a advertisement in the local newspaper, I believe the Times Herald, and that would have been on or around the 9th and 15th of May. I'm going to mark that as Exhibit B1 for the board. Is that okay with you?
Yes, no objection.
No
Thank you.
objections. Then I have a copy of a letter form that would have been sent with this matrix of addresses for the folks who would have been within 50 feet.
500 feet?
500 feet.
Yes.
Sorry.
No objection? Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. That's B2 collectively. Then we have a certificate of notification that was endorsed by Mr. Mrozinski, that the letter that has that matrix was mailed to those folks.
Yes, thank you.
B3.
No objection?
No objection. And then a certificate of posting that indicates that the property had been posted with notice of this application and hearing on or about May 16th, signed by Michael Rolfing, Community Development Department of the Township. I'm going to mark that as B4.
No objection, thank you.
No objection to that. Thank you, Madam Chair, for your indulgence.
And the admission of the exhibits A1 through A10, please.
Thank you very much, and any objections? No objections, they're admitted.
And do you have any conclusions that you'd like to present?
I think he already did that.
I believe, yeah.
Well,
Unless the
anybody
board,
want to say more after you?
unless the board has other questions, I rest.
I don't believe so. I think we'll take a moment and review. If you- Good. Okay, we'd like to call the meeting back to order. Thank you for your patience. Do I have anyone that would like to make a motion on our first hearing tonight?
Yes, I would like to make a motion
Please?
for the application of ERH Capital Partners LLC for dimensional variance from 143-37.A.2 of the Lower Providence Township zoning ordinance to allow lot area of 10,800 square feet where 25,000 square feet is required is denied.
Do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Any questions on the motion? Call for the vote. All those in favor of denying? Aye. Opposed? That passes.
The next motion is for the application of ERH Capital Partners LLC for a dimensional variance from 143-37A2 of the Lower Providence Township zoning ordinance to permit a front yard setback of 25 feet where 50 feet is required is denied.
Do I have a second on the motion? Any discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor? Denying? Opposed? It's denied. Thank you.
And lastly, the application of ERH Capital Partners LLC for a dimensional variance from 143-37.A2 of the Lower Providence Township zoning ordinance to permit a rear yard setback of 25 feet where 60 feet is required is denied.
A second? Any discussion? Call for the vote. Signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? Motion carries to deny. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're the room.
Who's next? We're burning daylight. Come on up.
Do we have to say something about the line?
Given it's,
Yeah, but you can come up, I'm sorry. Come on up and get yourself situated.
You're going to read the second thing?
Sorry.
all right, no, not yet.
Well, you
I'm
can
sorry.
just sit down, relax. I'm a little premature, I'm
He's
sorry.
anxious to get to the beach. We had a second hearing, Z 1909, house-to-house strategies. They have requested a continuance to the June 27th meeting. Do I have a motion to accept that?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Make that motion.
Okay. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed? All right, they're continued to next January 27th. Our third application, Bob, will you read that?
June 27th,
What did I say?
January, I think. Maybe I misheard it. Anyway,
Okay, June 27th. All right, would you read the third one, please?
But if I make a mistake, don't pick on me.
You pick on me.
The next hearing is Z-19-10, Marissa Cavalieri, all right? 2805 Sandpiper Drive, Audubon, Pennsylvania, 19403. The applicant is requesting variances from section 143-37A requiring a rear yard setback of 60 feet, and from section 143-30A2A requiring the projection of a deck into a rear yard lot area, a distance not to exceed 16 feet, provided that the deck shall not extend any closer than 20 feet to the rear lot line. Applicant is proposing to construct a deck that will extend into the rear yard lot area 41 feet with a resulting rear yard setback of 19 feet. Requested relief is needed due to the existing nonconformity of the lot. The parcel ID number of the subject property is 43-00-1 2715-00-4. The subject property is located at 2805 Sandpiper Drive, Lower Providence Township, and is in the R2 Residential District.
Is there someone here representing the applicant? No, it's you. That's you. So now you can stand up at the microphone.
Or if you're more comfortable, you can use the microphone there if you'd like. It's up to you. But go ahead, Mike, you're going to give us an overview.
Yeah, if I might, I'm familiar with this in that the action came before the township because of a building permit that was denied. Ms. Cavalieri is looking to remove a existing deck from the rear of her house and rebuild basically a larger deck, but along the back of the property, the back of the house, and it is basically, when we looked at it, was going to encroach into the rear yard's setbacks, and therefore the cause for the variance before you. Now, as we examine the lot, the lot is a corner lot at Sandown and Park. It's already a substandard, non-conforming lot of approximately 18,000 square feet. The house, in and of itself, is set far back on the property, and as you'll see, not only from the diagram of the plot plan, but some of the aerials, you'll note that, I believe are in your packet, you'll note that the rear yard is fairly limited in terms of the ability for Ms. Cavalieri to expand or enjoy it. They also would point out that she is basically replacing a structure that was put on to the house at the time that the house was built in 1970, so under different standards. There are similar projects in this neighborhood. We did also, I did receive 2 letters of support from neighbors that Ms. Cavalieri had spoken to. I believe that they were adjacent neighbors, if I'm not mistaken. And in terms of whether this is the minimum variance necessary, I mean, that's for the board to determine through testimony, but obviously a deck could be smaller, but the applicant will have to speak a little bit to that, more so than I can. But let me just quickly point out what we're dealing with. This is the plot plan. Over here on the right-hand side is Park Avenue. Back down off the screen is Sandown. The property, again, the house does sit considerably far back on the property. The house is angled so that the rear yard, which would, if it was built by today's standards, would have to be 60 feet continuous from, so approximately here with the minimum and straight across, was oriented on an angle with the reduced setback, which was probably in place at the time of its creation, 1970, but also when it was adjusted or skewed, it creates this odd rear yard right back here, so that even when the house was created, this back corner is 20 feet to a back property line. The side, this is considered the side on this because you have 2 fronts, front, rear, and side. And so the new deck is approximately this footprint right here. Okay.
Thank you, Mike. Ms. Cavalier, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yes, hi, everybody. So, well, Mike did cover a lot, thank you very much, but that the house, basically, it is on an angle with the large front, small back, and I bought the house 9 years ago from a contractor who built a deck on existing old footers that aren't even up to code anymore, and it's like deteriorating. So that's why I would like to demolish it and build a new, safer, nicer deck. The footprint is pretty much the same. It's a split level, so my footprint's pretty much the same coming off of the kitchen where I had the existing deck. All I simply wanted to add is to turn the steps to the side and build a smaller deck, then also off of my family room slider, which I don't even open that slider at all because currently it's just a little travertine tile pad, and it gets like a little muddy and everything back there. So I just want to be able to use the backyard. And so that's how I learned about the current setback laws, which brings me here requesting a variance. So I believe that you might have the 2 letters in your packets from my 2 neighbors, the one behind me and the one right next to me. This proposed deck would not alter the character of the neighborhood or the house in any way. I think it would just really be an asset and add beauty. That's my personal opinion.
How far back does the existing deck go, do you know?
The existing deck is a 12 by 20.
12 off of the back
Yes.
of the house.
And yes.
Does that already encroach the setback requirements?
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay.
Because I hardly have any backyard now.
So it's already non-conforming, is what you're saying? Doesn't conform to the ordinance as it stands right now?
Right.
And you're going to expand it by 4 additional feet, is what it sounds like, by
Yes.
going deeper?
But it still leaves a lot of room, and I have a fence and arborvitaes, and I really put a lot into my property. And if I'm right on the corner of Park Avenue and Sandpiper, and people stop me all the time, people I don't even know, and say, "We're so happy you came into the neighborhood. This house was horrible before you moved in. Thank you so much. You're always out here working on it." So I don't.
You're a glutton for punishment, is what you're saying.
I never stop working on it.
So you're going to have a 2-level deck because that's what you need for your 2-level house, and you need to drop it down so that you have access through both doors.
Yes, exactly, and that's really, it's not even going that far over. It's stopping before the family room window. It's not a big deck, just something that I can go out. And also it's lower, so it offers me a little bit more privacy because the Park Avenue, my neighbor behind me, his front door is Park Avenue. He's like right there. I was like, "Hi, what's for dinner tonight?" No, I mean, they're really nice. I'm very lucky. My neighbors are wonderful, but offers me a little bit of privacy as well.
So if I can just talk really briefly on the type of deck it will be.
Yes.
You mentioned that the old footers were really falling down or getting dangerous. You're going to put the same new to code great footers in, but it's going to be the same type of thing. It's not going to be an enclosed underneath. It's going to be
No, correct.
up, so there won't be really any additional effect on drainage to any great extent.
Oh, no, not at all. Oh, my gosh. No, it will not be enclosed. In fact, I just want to put some, I want to make it a little nice under there, aesthetically pleasing, and also a place to store, to store the furniture in the winter, the kayak, things like that. So I'm just going to put some river rock underneath. But, and they're going to put, the footers now are this small, like a 2 by, and they have to be really big now. So it'll be safer too. So.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The decking will be just planks that water will drip through, or is there going to be a solid sheet?
Yes, no, it's PVC decking, similar to composite, and
All the water bottles that I've been recycling are going to go into your deck.
and I am anti-water bottle. Buy those thermos on Amazon. So no, I don't think that poses any concern. No changes like that.
Okay, great.
Anybody else? Nope.
Let me just understand this, though, because I misunderstood your application. You say in the application that you were looking to, it says the proposed deck would extend 40 feet into the rear lot yard area with resulting rear yard setback of 20 feet. So what you're suggesting is that it's a 60-foot setback. You're going to be encroaching 40 feet into that setback that already is non-conforming, correct?
That's the way I understand it. I was a little confused by the way it was written as well, but the way I understood it when Mike explained it to me, that if you were, correct me if I'm wrong, if you were to build a home now in the township, the back of your house needs to be 60 feet from the property line, correct? Well, I mean, yeah, there's no way. Right, the way they built my house, especially on the angle. I'm not there.
So that diagram there that's up there now where it says, you see that pin that, or the corner, it says 20 feet from the property line? Is that the corner of your house, the upper right-hand corner?
Yes, that beautiful diagram my father drew 9 years ago.
You did a good job. I can sort it out.
Jack of all trades.
So where's the existing deck then? It's only 4 feet shorter than what you have there now.
Oh, if I may.
From over here.
Yes, it stops.
Stops right here.
Yes, these are the steps, and this is the living room slider. I think there's a better diagram here.
That's okay. From this
Okay.
perspective, though, right now, the corner of that deck is already non-conforming, is what you're telling me, because your house doesn't conform. Because it's not 60 feet from the corner of your house.
That's right,
to
it's
there.
impossible.
It's not 60 feet from the corner, from the middle of your house to the line, right? So you're going to have 20 feet, or roughly 19 feet right here, it says. Is it going to be 20 or 19? Important, because we're talking about a variance that you're looking for. We're going to say it's going to be 20 feet, but if that's not enough, is it 19 or is it 20? This diagram says 19.
I believe my builder added that red area, so
You asked for 20 in the application. Mike, go ahead.
Let me explain. I think that
I did it for 16.
My wording may have confused you, because in an abundance of caution, I was looking, just to make, my advice was to look at not only the rear yard setback, but also 14330, which you may remember allows for an additional projection of an uncovered structure into the yard. And so basically, that's the 20 feet actually is the wording of 14330. It's saying that it can't get any closer than 20 feet to the yard. So it's not, so it's, to answer your question directly, the deck will be 19 feet, but that needs the variance from 143, 27.
37?
I'm sorry, 37, because of the setback, but also because 14330, because it has that limiting prohibition of
Right.
20 feet.
Well, let's focus on 37 for the moment. So you're talking about a rear yard setback of 20 feet where 60 feet is required. Is that what you're asking for?
20 feet. 19 feet is...
19, okay, that's important. That's what I want to make sure we get this right, because I have this little script that I prepare before these hearings, and I want to do it the right way. I'm not saying that you're going to get it, I'm just saying there's language in here that says a certain footage.
Okay.
I don't want to have the wrong footage if ultimately it's granted.
Can I just throw one more thing in? I'm not trying to really confuse the issue, but whoever drew that line up that, I'm going to call it the right corner of the deck, to the line, and shows the 19 feet. Well, that's going at an angle. If that were moved slightly towards going straight up to the line, would that be still 19 feet, or would that be, say, 18 feet?
Your geometry. If you moved it to the right a little bit, what would that be?
Less.
I just want to make certain that we have, clear knowledge of exactly what it is. So if a certain amount is approved, if it is, that it turns out that it's not.
Is it because he just, I don't know, do you have to work on the straight line? Like if the deck's coming out straight, then you just keep measuring straight? Is that why it's done like that?
It should be from that corner to the closest part of the line.
Whatever the shortest distance is, because you're asking for a variance of a certain amount of feet. And if we gave you a variance of 19 feet, but yet it turns out when you build that, the shortest distance is less than 19 feet, then you can't build it. So you went through this whole process for naught, which we don't want you to do. So we don't know what that, as Mr. Hart described, it may be a shorter distance from the corner here if you went straight across as opposed to what this person did, which is they went on an angle.
But they may well have measured from that corner back to the line. I'm not saying they didn't. It may be 19 feet. I'm just trying to
Can I,
make certain that you are requesting what you need.
right. Can I call my builder?
Should we continue it?
Well, what's your time frame? She slumped her shoulders as if that would be a problem. Mike, what's your knowledge of this?
Anyway, 18 feet.
Should we take a road trip?
Send somebody out with a tape measure tonight.
Can we request the 18 feet? Can we make it lower to get worst case scenario?
Have to amend her application.
I don't think it's a material change, so it's not like you have to re-advertise or anything like that. So if you want 18 feet, then you'll ask the board for 18 feet, is what it sounds like.
I think 18's enough.
Well, let's not go too far now.
Yes, definitely. If not, I will have the deck be smaller.
The saving, a little bit of a saving grace. So if the board were so compassionate to.
We're a very compassionate board, right, board?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Despite what
Of
happened in the last hearing.
Right? If you continue to practice of your compassion, I do note that the post for the deck, as looking at the design here, are really where the measurement is from. So I don't know if the 19 is from the post or if it's from the cantilever of the deck, if you see the overhang of the deck. So long story short is...
You're not making this any better, my friend.
If you make this... I'm sorry?
The post is closer to the house.
Right, so you don't...
Aren't we talking about right here? I'm sorry, Paul, I'm not going to try and blind you. Aren't we talking about, this was on the diagram?
Right. My point is that the setback would be taken from the post and not from the deck. So it actually is probably more or less non-conforming than the 19 is indicating. But if the board were to, for an abundance of caution, want to say 17 feet, no closer than 17 feet, I think that we would encompass the design of the...
So do you want to amend your application to change it from 20 feet to 17 feet?
Yes.
With the understanding that if you don't need that, so you don't make the deck bigger just to get out to the 17 feet.
Oh my God, no, that just means more money, and this is, yes, they're carrying me out in a body bag in this house.
Okay.
You're good with that, Mike?
So then the next issue, Michael, is the fact that 14330 says that it can't be more than 16 feet, and you want it to be 20 feet, right?
No, it's the second clause of 14330, which is saying that it can't, in no case can it be closer than 20 feet. That's where the 20 comes in. So what I'm saying is the allowance that it can
16.
Right, but, yeah, I guess my concern was not with the 16, but with the limit of no closer than 20. This will result in something being closer than 20, which would be the 17 or...
17.
Right.
Feet from rear yard, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, anything else, board?
Any other questions?
You want
Any
to?
questions from the audience?
Oh, you all hung around for this. That's very nice.
No testimony?
All right,
Right.
so, I'm sorry, go ahead, Madam Chair.
Have to fight him. We'll take a few minutes and we'll be back.
We gotta do our
Oh,
housekeeping.
you're gonna, oh, okay, then it's your turn.
That's why I opened my big mouth, sorry. All right, so here we are. The application that you submitted, I believe you submitted, looks like this.
Yes.
I'm going to mark that as A1 for applicant 1. Do you have any objection to that?
No.
And this is your signature at the end?
Yes, sir.
This is a true and correct copy of what you've submitted, I presume, right, with this diagram on it and these exhibits?
That's correct.
I'll mark that all as A1. Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Thank you for that. Now, we also have information from our good friend Michael Mrazinski that provides a letter that was sent to people within 500 feet of your home, and a copy of that letter. I'm going to mark that as B1. Do you have any objection to that?
No.
Certificate of posting that the property was posted with the notice of the application. It looks like this. Do you have any objection to me marking it B2 and admitting it as an exhibit? Thank you very much. And then we have a certificate of, that's what I have, I'm sorry. And then you have a couple of letters here, I guess, that you brought in, is that right?
From my neighbors, yes.
From your neighbors? We'll mark those as A2. How's that?
Yes. Sure.
And you want those admitted, I presume, and we'll accept that unless there's an objection. And I don't know of any objection, so now you're welcome to move on, Madam Chair.
Mike's email in there?
I'm sorry, Mike's email?
Or is that part
What
of
does
the
Mike's email say? I don't think it's necessary,
Okay.
unless you think it's necessary.
I honestly don't know what email you're referring to, so I'll...
It says some further explanation.
Oh, no, never mind.
Okay.
You done?
I am. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
We'll go to the back and convene for a short bit, and we'll be right back.
Okay, thanks.
Stay tuned.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. Do I have a motion on the hearing Z 19-10?
Yes, I would like to make a motion for the application of Marissa Cavalieri for a dimensional variance from 143-37.A2 of the Lower Providence Township zoning ordinance to permit a rear yard setback of 17 feet where 60 feet is required is granted.
Have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Granted.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I gotta read one more, I gotta read one more thing.
I'm sorry.
Have a deck issue.
Sorry.
And the application of Marissa Cavalieri for a special exception under 143-30 of the Lower Providence Township zoning ordinance to permit a rear yard deck to be 17 feet from rear yard setback where 20 feet is required is granted.
Have a second?
Second the motion.
Any discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Gracias.
It's granted.
Thank you.
Second time.
You're all invited over when it's finished.
We're going to hold you to that. That's on the record.
You see that little bar there?
Yeah, party on the deck.
Thank you.
The next meeting is, perhaps, it says in our agenda that it's the 22nd. Has it been changed for some reason, or is it in fact the 27th?
22nd.
Yeah, 22nd is Saturday, so it's a typo.
Okay, so we'll see you all back here, all of you, June 27th. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Have a second?
I will second that motion.
Any discussion? Any vote? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We're done, folks.
You're welcome.
Happy Memorial Day, everybody.
Same to you. Have a good trip.
Remember what it's for. It's not about hot dogs and hamburgers.